Hey, good morning, everybody. Jason Schwartz with Not 10 Yacht Sales. Today, I wanted to take a couple minutes to speak to buyers. And specifically, I think when most of us think about brokers, we think about brokers in the context of it's someone that's going to be useful to me when I want to sell my boat. And it's often overlooked and underutilized as a buyer. But there are buyers out there that understand that you can hire a broker and work with a specific broker to help you go out there and help you find that next boat. And that broker is going to be an advocate for you as a buyer. So I thought I would just share over a few minutes here this morning, just a story of how I worked in that capacity this year. And again, just something to think about as a buyer, because I think we all know that it's very common in real estate that two brokers are involved in most of the deals. Whereas when you're a buyer of a home, you tend to partner with a broker that's going to help be your advocate and help guide you through the process of buying that home. And you absolutely can do the same thing when it comes to looking for your next boat or your next yacht. But it is underutilized. I would say probably less than 20% of the time do people actually use a buyer's broker in that capacity. And I think part of it is they don't know that that's an option. So it's something that I like to do, and I did a few times this year. And I'll just share one short story with you, and hopefully that helps to illustrate some of the benefits of using a broker in this capacity. And then, as always, you can always reach out to me, and we can talk further. Happy to answer more questions, but hopefully you'll find this helpful if you're a buyer right now thinking about shopping for your next boat. So in this scenario, I met a couple in April at a boat show. It's a boat show that we host at Not 10 Yacht Sales. We have about 80 boats down in Maryland, and we have 3 weekends in April where we have a boat show, and folks come take a look at our boats. In this scenario, this couple wasn't quite ready to look at a boat, but they wanted to come to the boat show and start to get familiar with the type of boat that they may want. And I spent about an hour with them that day, and we looked at a lot of different boats, and we stayed in touch. Well, they reached out to me about a month later at the beginning of summer and said, look, we're definitely at a point where we're much more serious about buying a boat. We would like you to represent us as a broker and help us find that boat. And I said, absolutely, I would love to do that. And we started the process, and we looked at another boat in Maryland. We looked at a boat up in Rhode Island, a boat in New Jersey. Ultimately, it took us about 6 to 8 weeks, and we found the one that they really liked. It was on the west part of Long Island. And this boat is represented by another broker. I wasn't the listing agent on the broker. And the first step in that process was, I had reached out to the other broker and asked, would you be willing to co-broker on this boat that you have for sale? And this is a little bit, I think, of a misconception, is that if you hire a buyer's broker, the listing broker may not want to work with them. I have not found that to be my experience, especially on boats that are, let's say, $150,000 and up. And I do think this conversation, in my opinion, is relevant to that price level of boat, where you would use a buyer's broker, typically $150,000 and up. So, in this scenario, this was a boat that was listed at $175,000. And look, as a listing broker, you have a responsibility to the owner of that boat to bring every offer that you can. So it's very, very rare that the listing broker is going to say to another broker, no, I for whatever reason wouldn't want to work with you and your buyer. So I think some people have that misconception. That is extremely rare that would happen. And frankly, for all of my listings, anytime a broker calls me up and wants to bring me a buyer, I'm thrilled. I want to sell that boat for the most amount of money that I can, which is my responsibility to the owner. And so, brokers working together on a deal happens all the time. So ultimately, we found the boat in Long Island. This couple is familiar with boats, but this was their first purchase, and they're near retirement age. And their thinking was they wanted to get a boat and over the next 2 to 3 years, build skills, get familiar with the boat, get comfortable with it, and ultimately do the voyage, which is the Great Loop that a lot of people like to do. So I like their approach and their thought process here. Let's get the boat now, a couple years before retirement. Let's get familiar with it, so on and so forth, so that we will be comfortable enough in a few years to operate it on our own. And so it doesn't have to be a new boat buyer to work with a broker. I think there's a lot of benefits, even if you are very experienced and you've owned boats before, but that just happened to be this scenario. So, through the whole transaction process, to have an advocate that's working with you, alongside you, partnering with you, I'm acting as a buyer in this entire transaction. So I'm thinking about it as if I'm buying this boat. I'm asking all the questions that I would ask if I was buying the boat for myself. So to have someone alongside with you, going through that process, thinking of additional questions that you don't think of, especially once we get to the survey. And this was it was a 2001. It was a 24-year-old boat. Obviously, there's survey items that are going to come up. And I could help them understand which survey items are really important, which are the ones we really want to address, and make sure we either get fixed or we ask for compensation. That's just one part of the process, but I think it was an important part of the process for them to have somebody help them through that, and to be able to talk through a lot of that. And of course, the negotiation that ensues. And in that negotiation, we actually had them fix a few things that we felt were mission critical. And then we asked for a $7,500 credit as well for the remaining issues that could be fixed over time. And we did get both of those asks to close this deal. So I also helped them with insurance, which wasn't easy on a 44-foot boat for a first-time buyer. So I helped them secure insurance and also financing. I think if you'd ask them, they would say, they would definitely recommend, that you work with a broker. And we ended up being a good team together, working together. But it's just something I wanted to bring to your attention as a buyer, and this couple was I'm located in New Jersey, but they were located south of Philadelphia. I mean, you don't even need to live very close to your broker, because nowadays you're going to look at boats that might be 1 or 2 states away, as I illustrated earlier in this conversation for this example. But I hope that's helpful. I gave you something a little extra to think about as a buyer. And I love to work with buyers in that capacity, so would love to be considered. And if you want to reach out to me with any questions, 732-882-3400.